Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome to the latest episode of the Hard Compound Live. For those of you who don't know, my name's Rich and I run and operate the Hard Compound. We're a one-stop shop for all things motorsport, and we can be found on Facebook, Instagram and Twitter, and these videos can be found on YouTube as well. We're here to share a love of motorsport, nothing else, no controversy, no nonsense, no arguing, no bickering. Just here to share a love of motorsport, and we do that in the form of usually 3 written articles every day. These go out on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at about 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and 8 p.m. in the evening here in the UK. These take the form of race reports, race reviews, same thing, isn't it? Race reviews, race previews, throwbacks, birthdays, breaking news, livery reveals, and anything else we can shake a stick at. And we cover everything from touring cars to Formula One, bikes, rallying, IndyCar, NASCAR, World Endurance Championship, etc. So come along, join the fun. In case you haven't noticed, we also do live video interviews just like this one. And just like this one, these go out on our Facebook, our Twitter and our YouTube channel. They're automatically saved in the live section on YouTube and in the video section on Facebook. So you can go and catch up with them whenever you like. We've done nearly 200 of these. I'm not going to name all the guests because I can't. Just to give you an idea, we've spoken with the likes of Mr. Mario Andretti and Jackie Ickx and Jackie Oliver. We spoke with Howard and Ganley recently. Just last week, we spoke with Nick Worth, the boss of SimTech and Worth Research. We've spoken to David Brabham, Stefan Johansson, Ari Landijk, Danny Sullivan, Carl Wendling, Amika Salo, Emanuele Pirro, crikey. Plenty more, as you can probably tell. And we've spoken to most of the British touring car grid. We've spoken to some British touring car legends, guys like Mr. Jason Plato, Mr. Matt Neal, Ivan Muller, Gabriele Tarquini, and Andy Prio, and many others. And we have got another touring car legend joining us this evening. He doesn't normally do podcasts and interviews and things, so we're very lucky that he said yes, and we're very grateful. So we're going to bring him in right now. Please join me in extending a very, very warm welcome to 3-time BTCC champion and legend, Flash himself, Mr. Gordon Shedden.
Hey, how you doing? You all good?
Yeah, all good. Thank you, Gordon. How are you?
Yeah, still at work, but we're all good.
Yes, I know. When you said we're live from Knock Hill, that's kind of cool, but I feel bad for keeping you. But you've got plenty going on there today, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got stock cars running tonight around the Tri-Oval at the Hairpin, which is pretty cool. I think it's been about 12 years since we last ran stock cars. So we did the F1 stock cars about a month ago, and then this is like a summer series. So this Wednesday night, and then the same in a couple of weeks time, I think it is. So it's quite cool. So if it gets a bit loud, I apologise. I do have my earphones in, but it is what it is, as they say.
That's all right. As we said off air, we sort of quite like to have engines as a soundtrack to these. Makes it a bit more motorsporty, which is what we like. But no, as I said, thank you very much for coming on and doing this chat this evening. Obviously, we've got a bit to rattle through. I know this isn't kind of your thing, and I kind of grabbed you at Donington, but no, thank you for saying yes and for sticking with it. I appreciate it.
No, you're all good. When I say I'm going to do something, I'll do it. So you asked, and you got me on the right day. So here we are. I'm sticking to my side of the bargain.
No, that's great. No, thank you very, very much. And yeah, great to have you on. We've had your brother-in-law on as well, so we kind of had to get you in as well. Can't have Rory taking everything, can we?
No, definitely not.
Good stuff. Right, just quickly before we get into things, folks in the comment section, you already comments and they're already coming through, which is great on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. They're all working. 75 of you logged in already. Just want to say hello to a few of you guys. Vitalda Maraseska, hello. Paul McGuinness, hello. Is in John Kane, one of the marshals up there at Knock Hill. Love your work. What we got here? David on Twitter is in. He said, looking forward to it. Excellent. Tracy Hickley's in, Defan Wynne Evans, and many, many others. Sue Reese as well. If you've got any questions, comments, anything like that, do pop them in and we'll work them in as we go. We're going to try and keep it chronological, so keep that in mind if you can, so we're not jumping around, and we'll see where we go. Right. As I said to Gordon off air, we were here till 1:45 last week with Nick Worth, so we're not planning on being that long. Don't worry. Just a little bit of news coming out of the team today. I mean, I'm not going to dwell on it for too much, for too long. Shame that Ronan's not going to be there at the weekend, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it's not Plan A for anybody. It's not Plan A, I'm sure, for Ronan. It's not Plan A for the team. It's not Plan A for the championship. It's a bit of a kind of awkward time as well. Being Speedworks' home event at Oulton. So yeah, I don't know the ins and outs of it, and it's not my business, to be honest. So I'm sure it'll all come out in due course. And from Ronan's point of view, as one door closes, I'm sure another one opens, and whatever that is, I don't know. But it's, like I said, not Plan A for anybody.
No, sorry. And obviously, I'm not going to dig for stuff. That's not what we do. Just hope it's only a temporary thing for Ronan, because obviously he's a very talented chap. So yeah, fingers crossed. Right, that's the present out of the way. What I'd like to do on these is go right back to the very start. Obviously, we know you're heavily involved at Knock Hill at the moment, but where did your interest in motorsport come from? Where did it all start?
I mean, I think I never had any family history of motorsport or anything. It was just, I think I was just a kid who had posters of cars on their wall, on their bedroom wall as a kid. Whether it was Lamborghini Countaches or Porsche Turbos or Ferrari F40s, whatever it was, that seemed to be the kind of thing, when I was a kid. And, it was something, I had an interest in cars, but nothing more than a passing interest. And, I think I went to my first touring car event was at Knock Hill in '94, just with my dad. Because it was one of the first kind of couple of times that touring cars had come to Knock Hill, and we only lived kind of 8 miles away, and it was just, I was just a kid kind of, looking at the sides, peering through the fence line, thinking, wow, isn't this cool, and queuing up for posters with signatures of Steve Soper and Joe Winkelhock and Cleland and Tarquini and things like that. So yeah, it was a passing interest, which then obviously kind of developed arms and legs and grew from there, really.
Absolutely. Was that the year that Tarquini did his barrel roll?
Yeah, barrel rolled with an assist from Tim Harvey down at McIntyre's. So a lot of people think it was Duffus, but it was definitely McIntyre's. But it was just, the crowds were just going insane, and it was because that Alfa, I mean, that was a full factory Alfa Romeo team from Italy, full of Italians drinking espresso, which was a bit different from Nescafe back in the UK at the time. And but it was just, Tarquini had just come from Formula One, 6 seasons in Formula One. So it was a big deal. It was proper racing, proper championship, and just mega action.
Yeah, it was an awesome time. I mean, I got into it slightly before that because I'm actually a bit younger than you, but I've been into it was in '88 was my first year with Jerry Marnie and all that. But that incident, I've had Gabriele on here and Tim, and they both blame Tim, so it's fine. It's pretty cut and dried, isn't it? That one, it's pretty cut and shut.
It's small margins, but one of those iconic touring car moments, isn't it? That you show that clip, everyone knows exactly what happened, and it was spectacular. So it was cool. I always remember people. There was somebody, and it was just I don't know why, it was a lasting memory, but there was somebody like walking away at the end of the day with the door over their shoulder, like back to the car park, back to the park and ride on the bus at the time. And I thought, this is just really weird. I don't really know why, but just one of those random memories.
Just thinking, what's he going to do with that?
What's he going to do with that? Where's he going to go? So, it was fun.
Yeah. I've actually, saying that, I've actually got a bit of Jack Goff's front wing from 2019 just over there. I don't know what I'm going to do with it.
But it's there. Yeah,
it's there. It's a thing.
Memorabilia.
That's what we do.
Exactly.
That's what we do as race fans. We get bits and pieces. But no, I mean, obviously, pretty cool intro. Pretty cool time to get involved in, especially with touring cars. When did you first kind of want to have a go yourself? Because I mean, I said I've got notes here, and I can't find anything really that you did before kind of '99. I mean, did you go karting, or was there any?
Yeah, I did a bit of karting, but only in '96 and '97. So I was kind of 16 really when I started, or 15 when I started karting. But I only did 2 years of karting. So I did 1 year in a kind of beaten up old second-hand kart. Just me and my dad we'd go between Crail and Larkhall. It was, 2 kart circuits that were closest to us. And then in the second year, we got a new chassis. And we did just the 4 circuits in Scotland. So Crail, Larkhall, Banff and Golspie. And I won the Scottish Championship that year in TKM, which was the biggest kind of class at the time. And then that was it. We won the Scottish, and it was a bit like, well, that's us kind of done now, because we didn't have enough money to go and do British Championship karting, which I think it was like £10,000 or something to do British Championship karting. It was like, well, there's just no way that we could do that. So we just sold all the karting stuff, which was literally one chassis. I think there was 2 engines and 3 carburetors or something like that. But we sold it all, and it was enough money to rent a little XR2 Fiesta at Knockhill for me to do one race in an XR2 at Knockhill. And that was how it was all going to end. I would do one car race, and then that would be it over. And I think I qualified in the front row and finished second, I think, in the XR2 thing, which was like the one make championship of its time. There was a really strong series, full grids at Knockhill. It was really popular down at Oulton Park as well. And then from then, I just ended up trying to, I had like £100 from a local body shop. I had £200 from from Auto Image, who were selling alloy wheels at the time. And it was just like needs must to try and do another race. And it just kind of like snowballed from there. But literally never owned a race car, just rented it. It got one tire on it, a left front tire. But I ended up kind of completing the season. I think we joined halfway through the season or something and did 4 or 5 races. So yeah, it was good.
It's a proper hand-to-mouth existence, which is obviously, we hear that story so many times. It's just, you just want to get to the next one and see what happens and hope for the best type thing.
And that was it. It was just, there's like the numbers now are pretty crazy, but back then it was, there was no other way to fund it. So at the time I had 3 jobs on the go to go racing an XR2. So I was in the summer. I was a postman in the morning. So I'd go in, I'd sort all the mail early, I'd run out the post office, I'd run round my postie round to then go and work at Knockhill, because I was instructing at Knockhill when I was 16.
Right.
And then I was selling double glazing for Living Design at night. So I had 3 jobs in the go, but needs must to go motor racing, and that's just what it took to get in a race car, and that's what I did. So yeah.
That's the classic early job, isn't it? The double glazing salesman.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. And kind of necessary up in your neck of the woods, the double glazing with wind and stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
The extended family's from Scotland, so I can say that. From Aberdeen, even further north. But I've just seen a few comments actually just coming in, but a few people just talking about Knockhill just before we press on. First one, what we got here, David Allen. Evening, David. Have you ever ridden a motorbike round Knockhill? Different line for a bike. Do you agree?
Yeah, I do. I do a bit on a bike round here. I do quite a lot of bike track days, so I'm probably more passionate about bikes in a funny kind of way than I am about cars, So I've got a Michael Rutter Batham Superstock BMW, so I've got a full blown stalker, which I do some track days on. We did a few years ago. We did a bike car swap with John McGuinness, and McGuinness got to drive my touring car, and I got to ride his Isle of Man TT Superbike. So it's quite cool. Like I said, I love my bikes. At Goodwood, I got to ride Joey Dunlop's last Isle of Man TT winning bike up the hill at Festival of Speeds. So, and I think we're trying to put something together to race at Revival on a bike this year, and a Manx Norton as well. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Oh, that would be very, very cool. Just while we're on the subject of Michael Rutter, we wish him well. He's obviously smashed his leg up, but he seems to be on the mend.
Yeah, he texted me the other night saying he's on the mend and he's looking forward to getting himself ready for Goodwood. So
good stuff. Good. I just sent him an email via his. If you can still hear. There we go.
Oh, you come back again.
No idea what happened there. My camera switched itself off. I'm just going to switch back to the good camera while the... hang on. Oh, hello. What's going on? My good camera. Oh, there we are. Right, sorry about that. Camera unplugged. Anyway, but yes, I said I okay. What have we?
I can't hear you. Your microphone's gone a bit weird.
Microphone has gone weird.
Oh, there you go. That's you back now. That's it.
Right, I'm not touching a thing. I'm feather fingers. Right. Anyway,
Right.
Let's skip on. No, that's awesome. I didn't realize you were so into bikes. I'm a big bike fan as well, which is fantastic. Got Bikes Corner just over there behind me. Okay, what have we got here? Very, very quickly. David Lay. Hello, David. First time watching live. Welcome. Just want to say, I just want to thank Flash and Matt Neal for making me fall in love with the FN2 Civic as a kid. Bought a Milano red one a couple of years ago and love the thing. Yes, we like that. That's good.
Had a few of them as company cars. I hope you haven't got one of mine.
Oh, if he has, he's going to be very excited. That's going to be great. Paul McGuinness has said, "Have two questions from Paul McGuinness. Have you raced the new Larkhall layout? That's the kart circuit, of course. And he has also said, have you had any laps in the Porsche GT4 today? I'll join you again soon."
No, just haven't been to Larkhall since it was all redone. I think they've had quite a lot of investment across there, and no office space today. So yeah, with the event running tonight. So yeah.
No, good stuff. A couple more questions which we are going to come to actually. Firstly, I do have to say hello to Indira Flack, who Gordon will know from the Great British Racing Drivers photo book. Absolutely brilliant book, some great photos featuring some of the best British racing drivers. Oh, with Gordon, of course. Well worth a look. Indira Flack is behind that, and I said I'd give her a shout if she tuned in, and she's been able to. So hello to you, Indira, and thank you for all your support, which is great. So go and check them out, folks. GBRD, Great British Racing Drivers. She said, Indira Flack, no, you don't. Yeah, I'm going to say hello to you anyway. Anyway, getting sidetracked. That's all the questions. We are going to come to them as well later on, folks. It's a bit warm. Right, just to get back to the chronological bit. So obviously you did a few bits, scraped some money together, went down the Fiesta route, and you did. Was it the full season? Was it in 2000? Did you know you were going to be able to do the full season, or was it just a case of another hand to mouth existence?
Yeah, it was a bit hand to mouth. So I did season 99, just with the same team who had run the little XR2 up at Knockhill. So Ian Cowie ventured down south, and they ran two cars, one for Alan Keith, who's from a little bit up further north in St. Cyrus. So I did 1 year really to kind of learn where I was going and what was happening, because it was completely alien. I'd never driven another circuit apart from Knockhill at the time. And in 2000, jumped ship to Tim Norton Racing Services, who were a Ford dealer. They weren't a race team. It was just two really enthusiastic mechanics who spent their evenings during the week prepping this car. Everyone used to laugh because it used to come on the back of a recovery wagon, the Ford recovery wagon. There was no big fancy truck. It was under an easy up, and just two mechanics. But God, they just did such a great job in prepping the car. And it was all about detail for them. And I always remember it was because the regs were really, really tightly controlled. You couldn't do anything. But inevitably, you can build a car to the regs. So it was really important to get the angle of the rear axle right on these little Fiestas, because they were really underpowered, but you couldn't modify it at all. But because they were a Ford, because they were a Ford dealer, they would order like 10 rear axles on the trade account and mount it in the car until they got one that gave the geometry that we wanted on the rear, and then just send 9 back to Ford at Boreham. So like that was the detail they were going to. And wow. They were just mega guys, which they served a great purpose, and it wasn't their business as such. It was fun for the mechanics to have something to do from the Ford dealer. That's
great to have access to the Ford kit and stuff, obviously the enthusiasm as well. It just
I think when you're saying about like the money side of things, it was because it wasn't racing back then. It wasn't as expensive, but the only thing you say was a hand to mouth, but it kind of was a bit, because at the time I think there was money from Ford for winning. I think it was £500 a win. It was £100 for pole and £100 for fastest lap. And like I'd budgeted for winning a lot of this money. So I think my whole season in Toca Fiestas was 18,000 quid or something like that. Wow. Which by today's standards is it's it's a lot of money, but by today's standards, it's not. It's not given. Where the world's gone since then. So it was half achievable to do, but most of it was prize money.
Yeah, which is good, isn't it? Yeah, if you do well, you get the perks, as it were. Just on that 18,000, you'd said I spoke to a driver who was in the mini challenge last year, and said that was the cost of the license.
It's mad, isn't it?
Before anything else. So things have rolled on a bit. And obviously, you were saying, you said you were setting the targets on wins and fastest laps and all that kind of stuff for the money and for everything else. And the season couldn't have gone much better. I mean, I did see you. I think you won 9 races across the year. Was it 15 odd races, something like that? You won over half. And I saw the highlights of one at Alton Park, which is obviously we're going to this weekend, and you controlled it nicely from the front. I mean, was there any kind of standout round that year? Because, as you say, it kind of couldn't have gone any better, could it?
It was just really, it was a great championship because the cars weren't massively, they weren't overpowered, but they ran on slick tires. So there was a bit of, there was a bit of kind of playing about with that. We had a night race. I remember the night race. That's probably one that stood out where I almost lost my license in the night race because it was round the old Snetterton. Okay. And I was having quite a big battle with Gareth Howell at the time. Gareth, me, and a couple of others, Tuckington was in it. There was a few of us all kind of running about somewhere near the front. And I was sitting in second place on the last lap, going up the old Snetterton up the back straight. And I just turned my lights off. So, because I could see where I was going because of Gareth's lights in front of me, but he couldn't see where I was, and just got a big slipstream up the back straight and then just pulled out and turned my lights back on. And God, I got hauled up in front of the clerk of the course that were threatening to take my license off me for the rest of the season. And I was like, but I could see where I was going, and they couldn't argue that bit. But they also couldn't find anything in the rules to see. There was actually no section in the rules to say that your lights had to be illuminated because it was only a one-off night race. Yeah. And Fiestas hadn't put it in the rules. It was in the touring car rules, but it wasn't in the Fiesta rules. So I got away with it. But I thought it was ingenious, but apparently not.
I'll just say that is great thinking. That's absolutely top draw. Yeah.
I thought I should have got bonus points for that. I thought it was.
I think extra 10 points for ingenuity or something.
Yeah,
you're right. I think I'm with you on that. But I mean, I just said, there's Gareth Howell and Colin Turkington was there, and you won the title by over 50 points. I mean, relatively comfortable, I guess, given the nature of the series. I mean, you must have been chuffed a bit. I mean, mainly for the money. And did it kind of kick you on to kind of want to go and do, or give you the ability to go and do more racing, I guess?
Yeah, because at that time, the championship was backed by Ford. So Ford had a big involvement. Obviously Formula Ford, the single-seater Formula, and then Fiestas, and then they had the touring car team with the Mondeo, with the Rapid Fit Mondeo. So part of the prize for winning the championship was you got a test drive in the Mondeo, which was obviously really, really important. But I kind of I got myself in a position with the championship. It was like I need to embed myself with ProDrive in as much of a way that I possibly can. So, I ended up testing the Mondeo quite a bit that year because they were at a bit of a crossroads. At the time, they were paying, last year is Super Touring, they had Alain Menu, Rickard Rydell and Anthony Reid, and they were all earning big money, and the program was costing a lot of money. And that was in the time when the rules were going to change, to BTC regs, whatever was post Super Touring. So Ford were looking at trying to find a way of keeping their involvement, but it not costing them as much money. So what perfect way to do it, as I tried to keep telling them, was to put the champion of your junior formula into a touring car, which again I thought was great. And that was actually taking quite a lot of steps forward. That looked like it had a potential to happen. And then Ford signed Colin McRae to the World Rally program. That was getting very expensive, and that was the end of the touring car program, and that was game over. So, yeah, the best laid plans and all that all went begging.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great theory and a great start. But yeah, just put it on ProDrive. I had David Richards on here a few weeks ago. What a guy! He's amazing, isn't he? What he's done.
Oh yeah, I mean to have had so much success in so many different formula with different concepts as well. It's pretty special what he's managed to achieve and put together, business wise as well. He's put together so many deals through his passion and enthusiasm that he deserves a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just last thing on that, it's very weird. As we went off air, he said he hadn't had his dinner and he was going to go and have his beans on toast. I went,
fine.
David Richards can't eat beans on toast. That doesn't feel right. Guy like that. But no, obviously a shame it didn't come together with Ford. But I mean, I did see that year that you won the championship. You also went, was it the National Saloon Cup UK Dutch Touring Car Championship as well with the team? I'm fascinated by the Dutch Touring Car Championship. Obviously, how did that come together? Because I've spoken to Tom Coronel on it, and he loved it.
Yeah, it was that again. That was just funded by Ford because that was when it was all going pear shaped. Then they were like, they were trying to get me into the National Saloon Car, which was becoming Class B, just to try and get me some more experience in something a bit better. GR Motorsport had some support from Ford at the time, so that was just again me getting plugged in to try and make it a bit better. So it was a little bit of the fallout, or not fallout from the previous year, but the fact it hadn't happened. That they stuck me in the National Saloon Car, stuck me in the Class B touring car at Knockhill. We did a round of Dutch touring cars, as you say, at Zandvoort, and that was super cool. I'm not even sure why we did it, but we did it, and it was mega. It was proper competitive. You had the Carley Motors BMWs. There was a Coronel was in a full factory Marlboro Mitsubishi thing, and it was like, it was a proper series, which was cool. And we had a good run. I think we were going to. They ended up making us start at the back of the grid because we were going to be quite competitive. I think we finished fourth overall or something from the back of the grid, or third or fourth in one of the races. And then they lost their sense of humour and just kept on making us start at the back. But it was good fun. And then we did Macau at the end of the year in that car as well. So that was, again, it was all Ford kind of, pieced together and funded by Ford to kind of just ease the pain from the other deal not happening.
No, sure. No, that's great. I mean, I didn't realise Macau was that early on. I sort of knew you'd raced there. I mean, just quickly on. I mean, I guess these were the first times you'd raced abroad, overseas. Obviously, different experience. I mean, obviously Zandvoort and Macau. You couldn't get two more different circuits. We've got to talk about Macau. I haven't been. It's on the bucket list. And this would have been before they sort of tweaked it and did all the bits and pieces and the craziness outside the racing, shall we say. That must have been great being out in Macau.
It was, but you got to remember, I mean, back then in 2001, there's no internet, there's no YouTube, there's no simulators, so you got no idea what's going on or where you're going to. There's some very sketchy videos, and I think we got there on the Tuesday, and the only way to learn the circuit was to jump in a taxi at 2:00 in the morning and just make him drive round the circuit. And the taxi driver going, Slippy, here, cars drop oil and things like that on like an uphill where the taxi rank is and things like that. So it was pretty cool, but it was a strange experience. It was just, I remember going there and we got taken out for a meal. I think the first night we're there, second night that we're there, we said, we're going to take you for an authentic, meal, courtesy of the sponsors and things. I was like, yeah, cool. And we're walking down this back alley and there's all these cages with every animal known to man, and it's a bit I don't really know if I like this. I was like, I'll just have the chicken fried rice, except there's a lot more of the chicken in the chicken fried rice than you'd ever expect. And I just, struggled. I was just like, is there anything that you guys don't eat? And they're kind of like, yeah, if it shows its back to the sun, we'll eat it. And I was like, that doesn't really exclude much. And they're like, yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, fine, just a different culture. And I just was so naive and young. I just didn't even know this existed, that this was kind of part of life. But I look back on it now and it was special times. But at the time I was like, I don't even know what I can, living on, I think I spent a week with a Mars bar and a tin of Coke. I think that was all I could stomach for the full time being out there.
I mean, that'll do. I mean, I guess in that situation, you're like, we like fresh food, but do you have anything that's a bit less fresh than that?
Yeah. Oh, it was awful. Yeah, but it was good. But Macau's a great place, incredible place. Mad, just completely mad. Now it's changed a lot. I mean, it was, the amount of land they've reclaimed, all the casinos, all the big casinos from Vegas are all in Macau now. And I think they say that they actually gamble more in Macau on a day than they do in Vegas now. It's mad. It's that big. It's that big.
Wow.
So it's crazy, yeah.
I mean, I've been to Vegas and seen it firsthand, and it's ridiculous the amount of money that's going around there. But if it's bigger than that,
oh, it's massive because it's banned. Gambling's banned in Hong Kong, isn't it? So you've got to go to Macau to do it. So you've
got to go next door.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Very cool. And also the Melco hairpin. I always bring it up. The only corner where you're not allowed to overtake because it's a permanent yellow flag, just because it's so tight, isn't it? It's
so tight. Yeah.
It's a bonkers.
No, it is a unique circuit, that's for sure.
Yeah. No, I love it. Love it. Definitely on the bucket list. And we mentioned Michael Rutter. He was going around there on a bike, wasn't he? Like, was it last year or the year before? Or he goes a lot of years, doesn't he? It's just absolute insanity. What are you doing?
Especially on a bike. And the only vague thing about it is that they don't ride in the wet. They only ride in the dry on the bikes. But the way the walls are and things, it's just like, guys, you're having a laugh, and you see all the pictures where they're like their shoulder, the leathers are like brushing against the wall, and people with like marks on their helmet where they've skiffed a barrier, and you're like, guys, you're just much braver than I am. But it's impressive, but very specialist, shall we say.
Absolutely, yeah. They're bonkers. I mean, I had like Shane Byrne on here a few years ago. Had Shaky on, and I've had Terry Reimer and Rob McElhenney since. But I remember saying to Shaky, he smashed himself up falling off, and 6-time British champion. And I said, the Isle of Man TT, and I got as far as, would you? And he went, no. He just shut me down completely for the same reason as Macau. He said, no, absolutely not. We got, hang on, question there. Andrew Rankin. Yes, Andrew, we'll come to that. But yeah, Macau, what a place. Okay, I just want to sort of go buzz on to 2001, because this is when you made your BTCC kind of bow. I mean, was there any plan to get, because I think they ran, was it 4 cars that year, the team, I think. And was there any plan to get you in the seat earlier or half a season, or was it always going to be a one-off, or where did it all come from? Because I think it's quite a jump.
It was, yeah, but obviously I'd driven the car the year before in National Saloon car. Then National Saloon became Class B of touring cars.
Yes.
And I didn't have anything else. I didn't have a program that year. And then the car that I ended up racing had been raced by Richard Mines, who still races historic cars today. But ironically, it was his shipping company who were the title sponsor of the Focus out in Macau. So I'd raced Macau, or I'd raced National Saloon cars, and then for that one meeting, and then Richard had a clash and couldn't do Knock Hill, or somebody had a clash, so they were like, well, we'll just put you in and have a go. And that's kind of what we did, and won. So it was okay.
I mean, I guess you sort of didn't have to think too long and hard about it. I mean, obviously home circuit, the track. Kind of a big deal though. It's your home circuit, loads of people there that and BTCC. What did you think when you were on the grid, and were you expecting much out of it? Or,
I don't know. I don't really know what I was expecting. I think it was just this opportunity, and it was all coming at me thick and fast. But I think what it probably taught, because I think I finished third in one race and won the second race. Yeah. And I don't know, I think maybe you almost think your life's going to change, and then pretty quickly you realise that it doesn't. And you go back to work the day after, and you've got to keep, plugging away to find something else. So it was absolutely amazing. I never thought as a kid, watching from the side, I'd get to drive a touring car. And for me, that was, this was amazing if I never get the opportunity again, even if it was just a Class B car. But yeah, to take away a class winning trophy was super cool in front of a crowd in Scotland. It was mega. But life didn't change, and the hard work was still there to do.
Yeah, sure. I did say though, we should say, obviously the class win, but you third overall podium overall behind Simon Graves and some bloke called Plato. Who stuck around for a bit, but that was amazing. What a start. You said that things didn't change immediately, but there were plans, wasn't there, for 2002? So I read of you and Alfa Romeo and trying to get on the grid and everything. It didn't happen, which I'll pass over to you in a sec. But how close was it? To becoming a thing?
in some ways, it was probably it was a thing. Like it almost with a little bit more momentum, it might have happened. But in hindsight, it was probably the best thing that it didn't happen because it was going to be very shy. The car actually wasn't that bad. The engine program, Mountune had the engine because they'd done the engine for the Focus. It was doable. But having now seen how much it takes to be successful, it just wasn't the right thing. So it was probably a little bit of a blessing in disguise that it didn't happen. Yeah. As much as it felt unbelievably painful at the time, it probably was the right thing that it didn't happen because it would have been a cool looking car. I'm sure it would have been well received. But yeah, it obviously just didn't get out of the starting blocks.
Yeah, which I guess, as you say, it's a shame at the time because you kind of want to go racing, but I mean, it all worked out in the end, which will come. Yeah. It went quite well. Loads of questions coming in about Knock Hill and cars and reverse races and stuff at Knock Hill. We're going to come to those a bit later on, folks. I have seen them. Don't worry. So Dale Green, Lisa Reinhard, your questions. I've seen them. Don't worry. Just want to skip forward. The Seat Cupra Cup, and I loved this. I absolutely loved it. It was the first time that I kind of heard about you, really. The question that I always ask. I mean, how did it come about, and why that series? And I kind of know because I know what the prize was. But why? How did it come together? Firstly.
So that was again another really late one at coming together. So I'd done nothing in 2002 again because it didn't have any budget. There was nothing that I could do. So 2002 was nothing. And then Seat really burst onto the scene in the UK as a brand, as a manufacturer. So they were going through this big kind of revolution of being the cheap and nasty hire car that you got in Spain if you were really unlucky to actually producing performance cars. Because they were basically all the parts were VW Audi. They were basically Audi TTs. Yeah. Running gear in a Seat kind of body shell. So they devised this kind of concept for that they were going to run this series with 24 cars or whatever it was, but they were going to run them under one awning basically. So they would all be prepped in-house, and you would pay your money and you would turn up and you would drive the car and you would go away. That was essentially the concept. So teams wouldn't be able to fettle with them and such like. But it came with, as you alluded to there, the biggest prize in British motorsport. If you won it, it was a fully funded European touring car drive with Seat, full factory. So
which will do,
which was mega. Hence the reason that a lot of people kind of were very interested in it. So, I didn't have a deal until about 3 weeks before the start of the season. I think I missed the media day launch, missed everything that was out in Spain, and then it was just a bit of ingenious thinking again. It's a little bit like my race, and there's always an angle to it somehow. But I managed to do a deal with the Sun newspaper, and with Seat. So the Sun, the Scottish Sun, were a big kind of supporter of Knock Hill at the time. There was newspapers of the day had motoring sections that were they were big business. There was a lot going on, and I managed to convince Seat that they should be spending some of their other marketing fund advertising in the Sun, to which they said, we probably will. And I said, well, hang on a minute. So what I'll do is I'll get you a better deal with the Sun. So basically I got Seat to buy the advertising space in the Sun, and the Sun would double their exposure, and that extra exposure would pay for my drive, which I thought was quite a cute way of doing it. So that was how it happened. And there was nothing more. And then Seat decided they needed to top up somehow. And I think we got a tracker with one of my sponsors, or a sponsor that they had kind of in the wings. But then we just did a deal with Seat that if you wanted a tracker on the car, you got it at a reduced price. And there was a percentage of that went to my racing budget as well. So that was kind of how that came about. And then I duly went and finished in the worst place possible in the championship by finishing second and not getting a European touring car drive.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at the results then because I remember I was looking at the results and going, yeah, that was good. Oh, yeah, second, he must have been chuffed. And then I thought, oh no, hang on.
It's just it was the worst place to finish, but it was what it was, and it was proper competitive. There was so many people that did it that year. Obviously, Huffy won. Stephen Hodgetts was there or thereabouts. James Pickford, who ended up driving touring cars with Seat a couple of years later. Julian Westwood, who'd raced up to Formula 3000, won the Vectra Championship.
Yeah.
Craig Murray, who raced up to Formula 3. I mean, it was just like the list went on and on and on. Gavin Smith, who Aaron's big brother, he did it. It was just one thing after the next.
Yeah.
So it was interesting. It was a good concept.
Yeah, and it obviously worked. I mean, as you said, I mean, in completely equal machinery against all those kind of guys. Obviously, there were no slouches on the grid, and obviously, some bloke called Huff turned up and won. But I mean, I guess not the consolation, but I guess the takeaway is that in equal machinery, you can be right on there against these kind of guys, and that must have been. Despite the disappointment, it must have been like a shot in the arm to think, well, I can do this properly.
Yeah, and it was good. It was more power in a car than I'd ever had before. It was turbocharged. Yeah. There was lots of different things in that, but it was also SEAT were really all about building profile. It was all about how you build your profile and build your fan base, and that was what SEAT were really keen to do. And they had some great concepts. I mean, we went to Rockingham for one event. And SEAT just bought the grid, like they bought the entry, like to the event. So they gave away 40,000 tickets free of charge. They had a concert with like the Sugar Babes playing live and somebody else, and they were just SEAT was in a great place. They had such a different take on marketing, and it made their cars cool. And you look at how many SEATs ended up out there, those bright yellow, banana yellow kind of Cupras and things, all of a sudden became super cool. And it was all because of their marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it worked on me because I got a Leon. They did a superb job with it on and off track. And obviously, I guess that's partly why you went back the following year, 2004. I guess, eyes on the championship again, eyes on the prize type thing. Having come close to Rob Huff in the year before, it was almost. I looked at the results. It was almost an identical season in terms of results. You were just sort of thereabouts, but not. I think there was a win or two in there, but it didn't quite. From the outside looking in, it didn't quite look like it. It was quite there, almost like a nearly season, as I call it.
It was. It didn't take much to swing one way or the other, but it was really weird. Like the way that they ran it was just like it was a rally team that basically ran the cars. So they didn't the detail. It was obviously run to a budget very specifically, and it was just you kind of had what you had. It was a bit weird, like they wouldn't put 25 litres of fuel in it. They just filled the thing up with fuel. They never had, they didn't have they never set up every single car. They just had like a length on the spring platform, and they said, well, that'll be the same on every car. And you'd walk along the cars going, that's really low, that's even lower, that one's really high. And there was just nothing you could do about it. You just got what you got. And with running so many cars, there was obviously a lot of kind of mechanics just brought in for the weekend. They're working on it for half a day, then they're away on to the next thing. It just, it was, you either ended up in a good place or ended up in a, not so good place, and you didn't have to do a lot wrong to kind of flick one side or the other.
Yeah, sure. It just kind of almost like the way it fell, I guess, and out of
no excuses. We had a couple of offs and a few things happened, and it didn't kind of work that second year. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, it was another year of racing, I suppose, and it wasn't too pricey, I guess. For the following year, were you looking at staying in for 05, or were you looking elsewhere? Because I know that you ended up doing a couple of rounds in the Porsche Carrera Cup GB. Was there any plans for a full season anywhere?
No, and it was the same thing. I ran out of money again. That deal was going. Yes. I think SEAT changed it. I think the year after, 2005, I think they changed it. Then teams could run the cars because they realised it was costing them too much money to run them all themselves inside. And it kind of had its. Then there wasn't the prize. The prize wasn't there. So it kind of all lost its appeal a little bit. And then in 2005, a little bit the story of my racing. I had no money, so I didn't go racing. It was quite simple, you know, and that was it. And then again for Knockhill, Porsche at the time ran a VIP car, a celebrity car, whatever you want to call it, a guest car that was all sponsored by Autosport. And because I wasn't racing, you know, they literally phoned me a month before and said, "Do you fancy doing the Porsche round at Knockhill in a touring car event?" I said, "Yeah, never driven a rear-wheel drive car, never driven a Porsche. Didn't realise it was left-hand drive when I turned up on the Friday." And went out and again, like had a cracking run, and I think I finished on the podium in one race. I think I finished on the podium, but it was proper then, like like Julian Westbrook was in it, who went on to win in Porsche Super Cup and factory driver in GT racing. Tim Harvey was doing it; he was at the top of his game in those at the time. There was just another list of people doing it who were really, really good. And I was just having a whale of a time thinking, I've got no idea what I'm doing or what's coming next, but it's a weekend racing, and I'll grab it with both hands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just thinking, in a short space of time, you've gone from like Fiesta to like Seat Cupra to Porsche. I mean, which one of those felt? I always like asking this. Which one of those felt like the biggest jump? I'm thinking maybe Porsche from the outside looking in, but I don't know.
The Porsche was different because there was a very specific way to drive it, and it was still an H-pattern gearbox at the time, and you had to blip and heel toe on the downshift. So very kind of technically, you had to be technically correct to do it. If you didn't get it right, the weak point was the clutch, and you just blow the clutch up. So they were really like, you have to kind of do this all the time. And I was a little bit lucky because it rained, I think, and it just gave me a little bit more feel on the tyre, because I've never driven with a slick tyre that big and that wide before, like they had on the Porsche, But yeah, that little bit of changeable conditions just fell into my hands and made it a little bit easier rather than just a pure dry weekend.
Yeah, good stuff. Like, like a bit of a leveler, like a leveler. Following obviously 2005, there was no drive, no money, etc. Then 2006, I want to say all of a sudden, I don't mean to say all of a sudden, but you're back in the BTCC alongside the reigning champion, championship winning team, big sort of backing, team dynamics, Matt Neal. Where did that come from? Because you must have thought, this is fantastic.
Yeah, it was, and I'd been working at that for a while. I'd found myself a good sponsorship package. I had a sensible amount of good commercial backing to take to a touring car team for 2006, and I kind of had this in place at the tail end of 2005, like before the last round of the championship in 2005. So I'd taken a couple of guests to Brands Hatch for the finale. Funnily enough, with West Surrey, it was with MG with West Surrey, because that was going to be a potential home for me. And then that all looked a bit tricky because they were running out of decent funding at all on the MG side of things. So then it went to I tried to get into Vauxhall, because Vauxhall were the factory team at the time. They were winning. Everything looked. That was the kind of biggest team. And I remember we went to Vauxhall. And said, look, this is, we agreed kind of, what the money was going to be, the sponsorship package. And we went there and, had a look round, and then they came back and said, okay, so for that amount of money, we can give you the wing mirrors on the cars. So that you'll get the wing mirrors, and that'll be the space that you get sponsorship wise. The conversation continued, and there's a bit of hospitality. And the guys that are with were like, okay, well, it's the factory team, it's a works team. If that's what it is, then we'll make the hospitality work, and we can probably do this. So we left the meeting, and then overnight I had a stressful night, and I thought, this isn't a good deal, and it's my dream to do it, but it's actually not a good deal for my sponsors. So I kind of left it a day or two, and then they got in touch with me and said, like, okay, are we ready to, have you've got the contract yet? We need to get this signed. And I was like, it's not the deal for you. I don't think you should sign the contract. And I'm like, well, what do you mean? I said, just don't feel that it's good value for money for what you're spending.
Well, they're not getting enough out of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, and it pains me. I'm heartbroken that I can't do it, but it's just not the right thing. So thank you, but we're not going to be able to do it. And I said, okay, well, thanks for being honest. And the conversation finished. And I spent a week going, I've just given away my dream, like of everything I've ever wanted to try and do, or, had an opportunity to do. And I've been so close and just given it away. But it was like, but I've done the right thing. I knew in my heart I'd done the right thing. And then anyway, they phoned me back up and they said, right, Gordon, we've had to think about it internally. If that wasn't the right deal, go and find us the right deal for next year. And I was like, really? And they were like, yeah, we want to do it. Like, we believe in the concept of still why we want to do it. Go and see what else is out there and try and find us the right deal.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay. So basically, something had happened at Dynamics. I think like there was a fallout, or something had happened with Dan Eves' sponsors, and it was all moving about. So there was a space there. So I phoned up just out the blue to Matt, said, look, this has happened. He'd known me a bit from some Fiesta stuff and things, and but nothing more than that. And he was like, oh yeah, well, we'll see. I don't know. We're looking at a lot of things. We're looking at other people. It's a big jump. Because he just won the championship, the first independent to win the championship.
Yeah.
And basically, I phoned him every day for 3 months. Just every day I phoned him. Said, what, anything I can do, what's happening, like how's car development going? And he was like, it came to the crunch of who they were going to choose. And I think it was actually between me and Turkington, I think, in the end.
Was it really?
Wow. For that year. But Steve Neal, Matt's dad, was very old school in his methodology, and it came to the crunch, and he said to Matt, he said, well, who do you want as your teammate? And Matt was like, well, he said, I'll probably take Gordon, because I've never heard from Colin. Like, I don't know who he is. I don't know him. Said, I feel like this kid from Scotland I actually know quite well, because the silly bugger's been on the phone every day for 3 months. And it was nothing more than that, like, brilliant tenacity of phoning all the time. And he was like, it was obviously a flip of the coin, but because I'd just been on the front foot a little bit, that was enough to kind of get me over the line and get that drive. And what a drive that ended up being, and what a journey that started.
Yeah, I mean, wow, it just goes to show that if you can make yourself a bit of a pest, but not a pain, you never know where it's going to go. That's how I get people to come on. That's how I get people to come on here. It's obviously yours is much bigger. But no, that's amazing. It just goes to show if you push a bit where it can lead. And as you say, what a journey it started. I mean, I've got a note here to say we're going to cover the first year, then handpick the rest, because it was all, so much has gone on. I mean, obviously, you've got the deal. You're with Matt, reigning champion. Kind of knows his way around a touring car by this point. I mean, what was it like the first time you got in the car and gave it a test, and working with Matt and everything? I mean, it must have been great.
Yeah, it was, and it was just such a step up from everything. Just the way that he operated, the way that the team operated, was just mad, And we went to Albacete in Spain for a week-long test, but there was really only one car, so Matt drove it for 4.5 days to try and make it better, and then I got half a day on the Friday afternoon before we kind of finished to kind of have a look at it. But it was great because he was developing the car, and it's all about making the car faster. So it didn't matter. I wasn't going to contribute anything to the development of the car, so it was actually better that he concentrated on, making that car, the 2006 car, better than the 2005 car. So I was just really, really lucky that I had at the time, because they changed the engineers. So Matt still had Baz, who's Barry Plowman, who's still technical director at Dynamics, and Dave Potter. That was Matt's 2 engineers, and then I ended up getting Eddie Hinckley. So Eddie had been Jason's engineer, Plato's engineer at Seat Sport. In past times, Eddie had Eddie won Le Mans with the Silk Cut Jaguars, with Johnny Dumfries, proper guy. Yeah, and it was just great that he was new into Dynamics, I was new, and we just started that bond of him just trying to figure out the car while trying to figure out what I wanted and what kind of made me tick as well. And I had Eddie all the way through my Dynamics years. We never separated, and until I went to Audi in 2018. So yeah, some great times and so much, such strength of engineering between Eddie and Baz. It was just, and Potter in the background. It was just, proper people that knew what they were doing.
Yeah, and like knew what the other brought to the table, what they wanted, and it feels like it kind of almost became a if it ain't broke, don't fix it very, very quickly, I guess. It was just one of those things. I mean, going into the first round, obviously you're thinking, right, new team, proper, there's a commitment here. And you obviously want to do well, of course, but I mean, it didn't start. I don't want to dwell on this, but I mean, it was a double retirement of brands in the first two races. I mean, you must have thought, this isn't how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, and it was just a little bit like there was so much going on. The way the event works. There's just so many things happening. But I can't remember, but something. I don't know if we broke a throttle cable on the way to the grid or something happened. There was we had an electrical problem. Something happened anyway, but it just wasn't a great start. But things got a bit better pretty quickly after that. I think I won on my third time out in the thing at Oulton, so it didn't take long to kind of get a little bit of performance out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll come to Oulton in just a minute. I've been. Someone's asked me to ask you about this. Mondello. Quickly about Mondello. Cracking circuit. Just a shame the series doesn't really go there anymore, does it? I always thought, but I guess it's a logistics issue, isn't it? And things and facilities and stuff at Mondello. But a cool place to race, though.
It was. I only did that 1 year. I think that was the second round. I didn't. Didn't know whether it went left or right. Was just surviving on instincts. But it was cool. It was a cool. Cool place to go. It was quite a quirky circuit, but that again is the variety and the spice of BTCC. So if we went back, fine. But I think it was all funded. I think all the teams were getting heavily funded to go like on all the ferries and the transport and things like that. Some Visit Ireland thing or something. I think so. Kind of made it a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess therein lies the issue with not going back there now. It's you haven't got to be an economist to figure that one out, which is fair enough. Now, someone I said I need to ask you about. This was someone else's wording. They messaged me saying the move into the first corner. They said, "Was it a wee bit of a lunge into that?"
Mondello.
Yeah. Bumped into, was it Thompson?
I can't remember. I think I did inside at Thompson. Yeah. To be fair, I think I probably got excited. I don't know. I can't even remember. I think I'd qualified in the second row or something, but the cars were quite different. So the Seat at the time was Super 2000 spec still, and the Integra was BTC Touring, I think they called it at the time. So it was slightly different. So the Leon was very light, but it had smaller brakes. But the Integra was, and the BTC cars had better brakes, so you could stop a lot quicker. And I think I probably just made a better start than I thought and had visions of making it to turn one when it all got a bit tight. And I can't even remember. I know Thompson didn't finish. I think I got something I got a bit of a bollocking for, but you live and learn. Yeah. But I think it just all happened quickly, I think.
Yeah. I just disclaimer, not my question. It's just very tricky asking other people to put questions in. But no, we alluded to it. Obviously, we're going to Oulton Park this weekend, which we'll come to shortly. But good memories of there. Just your 9th race, your third round, and you take your first win in the series. Excuse me. Happy memories of that, I'm sure.
It was. Great. I mean, that was mega. But there was also this kind of, you're jumping into, a proper team, with the reigning champion, big sponsors, with Halfords, with everything else that was going on as well. It was a big machine, and it was like, there was no, there was no place to hide. You just had to get on it and make the best of, and it was. It was good. To win that race was brilliant. It gave the team like a bit of a kind of boost as well, because then they realised that actually there's two of us there to play rather than just Matt and something that's not working. And I can't remember. I'm sure I won 4 or 5 races that year and finished 4th in the championship. Which, as a rookie, when there was 30 odd cars in BTCC, I don't know how many other rookies who haven't raced any touring car, have finished like top 4 in the championship. So, you know, it was the start of something really cool. You know, it definitely was.
Yeah. I mean, 2 things that actually caught my eye as well. I mean, just looking back over it, I mean, was it at Thruxton you did the clean sweep of, what was it, pole, fastest lap and the win? Matt went second that weekend. You did the same thing again at Donington. You won there. And I've got here, you were only outside the top 10 when you finished twice all year. I mean, it's a hell of a start. I mean, you must have thought, this is fantastic. I mean, obviously, it gave the team a boost. It gave you a boost. I mean, everyone was talking about you as well, saying, who's this guy? And it must have been, I mean, that first season, you must have been so happy with it.
It was good. But I just, and you know, you learn so much. And there was too many times when I ended up in the wrong place at the wrong time. And that was it. You know, generally, I'd have like a first, a third, and a non-finish or something stupid like that. And it was just, I kept bending the steering because I'd have side-to-side contact, or I'd get into places where I didn't need to be. And I learned so much by coming out of you would get, 3/4 of the way through the year, and Matt's given, and the team are going, you just need to finish. You've got plenty of speed, but if you finish first, third, and non-finish, you'd be better finishing 6 3 times, and you're going to score the same amount of points. So it was like, the penny dropped, pretty quickly, that it's like, you just got to start getting to the end here, but it takes a bit of doing.
Yeah. I mean, especially given
it's not as easy as you think. Yeah.
Given the nature of the series, there's elbows flying everywhere, so it's you get caught up in stuff sometimes. Just been on for an hour, crikey. So obviously you got to grips with the Integra, quite a big car, as you said. 07 switched to the Civic, which became fairly successful for the team. What was that switch like? What did you think of it? Was it a bit more kind of nimble? I mean, from the outside looking in, obviously it looks a bit more nimble, a bit more kind of racy, the shape of it, the size of it, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the Civic was quite tricky. It was a tricky little car, the FN2. That was the team's kind of, first kind of foray into the Super 2000 rules. At the time, the Seat already existed because it existed in World Touring Cars. It was built by Seat Sport. The BMW already existed because it was built by BMW Motorsport. And then there's, as Dynamics, this was like the first build of Super 2000. And we got the thing going well. It was just really edgy. It took quite a lot of getting used to. And it needed a bit more development. But then obviously Matt jumped ship at the end of 2007 to go to Vauxhall, which was probably the best thing Vauxhall did, because not only did they get themselves a double championship winning driver, but they took the development force out of Dynamics as well. So they it was a double-edged sword, because they hindered us while they helped themselves. So it was quite a cute move by Ian Harrison and the Vauxhall team at the time to do what they did.
I mean, was it a surprise when Matt left? Because I know as fans, and there was a lot of people. I mean, obviously this was pre-social media, but the few people that I could get in touch with, I was, had a few mates who were into the series at the time and everything, and we were all like, "What the hell? What?" We kind of couldn't believe that he'd gone, because obviously it's a family-run team. And I mean, was it a shock for you guys as well?
I think it was on the cards, because one thing about Matt is it's just everything about the team, and he was bear in mind, it's not the first time that Matt hadn't driven for Dynamics, because he went to Peugeot in 2002, and he'd already driven for Vauxhall with Export, in 2002, 2003. So he'd been away before. It was just, this was coming at a time when the team was quite buoyant. But he looked at it and said, well, he had an opportunity personally to, make a couple of quid, which absolutely he should. He has to take advantage of his success and his, his capability. And he looked at it and thought, well, Dynamics is in a good place, and maybe there's opportunity to get more sponsorship in from another driver, and that will leave Dynamics in a better place. So there was a lot of consideration. He doesn't do anything spur of the moment. He's a funny old bugger. He does contemplate things and mulls things over, and comes to his decision in quite a balanced way. So
I found that he came on here 5 years ago now, lockdown and everything, and he sent me about 3 or 4 maybe emails because he was just thinking about what his time was doing and all that kind of stuff. And he said yes, but
yeah.
So yeah, I get that about Neil, about Matt for sure. But that year, just a couple of things. I mean, you had your first win at Knockhill in the BTCC. That must have been a proper special one because obviously you're fully sort of signed up. You know what it's all about, and you can give it the big promo, I guess. I'm in the top team and all that, and then to deliver must have been fantastic.
It was really good because already then things were kind of, from Knockhill's point of view, the Scottish kind of crowd. It was the first time really that anybody had been winning regularly since John Cleland.
Yeah,
and the support that Cleland got was just incredible. And John, an integral part of BTCC and all things Knockhill and Scottish motorsport. So all of a sudden, it was almost like John's fans were beginning to kind of morph across and get behind me, and then there was another generation kind of coming in as well. So it was absolutely mega. You've gone from people supporting Cleland and David Leslie and Reedy to all of a sudden having somebody else who was competitive and winning and in a good team, like there. So it was, the crowd numbers were going up and up at that time when people kind of coming with their, with their flags and their saltires and things to support, which is cool.
Wow, that must be cool. Taking John, not taking, but having John Cleland's fans as well. That's cool because John's a great guy as well. Loads of time for John. I think that year though, I mean, you was it your third overall? But I did see there was like 10 retirements, and you mentioned about getting to the end of races and just not being able to for a number of reasons, not always down to you, of course. But I think you retired from a third of the races and still finished third. I mean, you must have thought, well, that's good going. But were you thinking what could have been if a few more points had been bagged for those retirements?
Yeah, definitely. There was a few, just a few things that was like, if only. And it's always that thing, I think, in life, if you could turn back the clock, when something happens, if you could turn back the clock 30 seconds, like, would you do something differently? And, a lot of the time you would say, well, the harsh reality is, if I did something a little bit different, then probably the outcome would be a little bit different. Very few times I think can you say that and go, absolutely, there's nothing I could have done different. It was what it was, and that you got to put to the side. But for sure, in hindsight, I look back and think, actually, had I just done this, or had I not been quite as aggressive, had I not been quite as, eyes on the prize, then the bigger picture might have looked at, even a little bit better at the end.
Yeah, sure. I mean, obviously in the heat of the moment, you're racing and you think, go on. I mean, we saw it with Lando Norris at the weekend, didn't we? It's like, Lando, come on, what are you doing? But at the time,
he's done it with all the right reasons,
Yeah, you go for it. We'll come to aggression and overtakes in a minute. 2011, not one of your overtakes, don't worry. Obviously, just you got Tom Chilton on board as a teammate. Stand-up chap, isn't he, Tom? And I've heard I saw a few things across social media saying, oh, he's not on it anymore. He's had his time and everything, which is absolute nonsense. I mean, he's still a top driver and a lovely guy as well, isn't he, Tom?
He is. I mean, he doesn't have a bad bone in his body. The whole family are just, just lovely people. And Tom, quite rightly, when he started in T cars, and I mean, he was already driving a touring car by the time he was 16. He kind of broke the mold of people not going through all the junior formula before jumping into a touring car. He just ended up there. And, I think his first year he was teammate to Aaron Slight, of all people, talking about bikes and the Vauxhall and things. And you think that'd have been quite cool. But and he was, by the time he was at Dynamics, he'd already been racing touring cars for like 5-6 years or something like that. So he had a bit of experience by the time he got there.
Yeah, and I mean, it was a pretty solid season. One thing I wanted to ask about was Rockingham. You touched on it before with Seat. You took pole and a win there. A bit of an up and down season, but pole and win at Rockingham. It kind of splits opinions. The fans always loved Rockingham because you were up in a big grandstand, and I loved it there. But some drivers loved it and some not so much. I mean, where? I mean, obviously you took pole and won. I mean, where did it sit on your kind of likability radar?
I always thought it was a weird one. Results-wise, we're always pretty good round Rockingham. I just thought it was the most soulless place in the world. Like, you turn up to this concrete jungle, off an industrial estate. I always laughed and joked, said, I wish the security guards would wear clown outfits, because at least it'd make you smile when you went in, because there was nothing else to make you smile when you went there. There was just nothing. The corners weren't particularly exciting. It was a track, and that was it. There was just no emotion attached to it at all. And it was such a shame, because it's the only circuit in recent times that's been built from scratch.
Yeah.
Relatively recent times, and they built that, and everyone went, why did you do that? They just could have done such a better job with a little bit more imagination.
It was originally sort of centered around the like ASCAR, wasn't it, which was coming in, and the old oval, and then they did the infield section. And it could have been a lot better, couldn't it?
But then it was like, they built it for IndyCar. You're right. To come across, they wanted an IndyCar race. So that was a great plan, wasn't it? We'll have an IndyCar race in the UK where you can only race when it's dry. That was their first mistake. And then I remember talking to Dario about it, and I said, what's the Rockingham? What's it like? What track's it like in America? Which one have they modelled it on? He said, none of them. He said, it doesn't bear any resemblance to any of them. And you think,
more like the Lausitz ring, I think it was.
Yeah, surely you would have just gone, what gives the best racing in America? Whatever, we'll have that. Just give me that. Just transport that to the UK. Yeah, that would have been the way to do it, I would have thought. But yeah. Anyway, people far cleverer than me have made the decisions there.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of was. Sorry, I got mozzie. It kind of was what it was, but the fans always loved it. I think because you could see everything. That was probably it.
It was cool with the grandstands. Yeah, it was good from that point of view. It was different.
But I guess for the racer, perhaps not so much. But yeah, you got a win there, which is always very nice.
Yeah.
Quick one about 2009. A bit of an odd year. You sort of started with Dynamics, and then you weren't with them, and then you went to the bioethanol. Power team, what was it? Clyde Valley Racing. How did all that happen? Because it was obviously you seemed quite settled at Dynamics, and then it just kind of, I don't know, glitched a bit.
Yeah, I think Dynamics had lost the Halfords funding at that time, so they'd lost the sponsorship. Everything was getting a little bit tight. Matt wasn't there. We ended up. Chilton had gone somewhere else. I can't remember. Did Chilton go to Vauxhall then? I think maybe as well. I can't remember. So Dave Pinkney came in to drive the second car, and the car just didn't get enough development over the winter. And I think we got 3 or 4 races in, and Steve Neal just woke up one morning and said, it's the car's fine. There's nothing wrong with the car. I'm going to put James Thompson in it. So that was it. I got elbowed out. And then, Jimmy didn't really have a good run in it either. It was a little bit up and down. And then the bioethanol thing, I got the chance to drive the Cupra, which was sponsored by Cartridge World at the time. So Cartridge World were replacement ink cartridges, basically. And I drove that at Snetterton, I think, for the first time. It was reasonable. And it was it was absolute hand to mouth. There was no money. The team went bust that was running it. It was, it was terrible. It was a bad state of affairs. But we were at Snet. I think we were. Where did I drive it the first time? I can't remember where I drove it. Anyway, whatever. We got to Snetterton. Literally, Dynamics were bringing old brakes out the truck to siphon them down the pit lane to kind of put on the car for me, and it was proper. It was proper hand to mouth, and then it all went bust, and the receivers ended up taking the car from the team and all the kit, and it was the whole thing was gone just before Knock Hill, and then I ended up buying everything from the receiver for no money at all, because the receiver didn't know what they had, so I bought the car,
right? Okay.
Well, with the sponsorship money from Cartridge World, because I'd gone to Cartridge World, they were pulling the sponsorship because the team was bust. I said, no, you need to complete the season, because replacement cartridges are all about being as good as original equipment. They've got they run the same lifespan. There's no reason to have original cartridges. When you can have this replacement cartridge. So the story is that you have the longevity, and that means getting to the end of the season. So they agreed to continue the sponsorship. We used the sponsorship money to buy the car. We ran the car on nothing, qualified on the front row at Knockhill. I think we finished the last round at Brands Hatch GP, I think somewhere in the points, quite well in the points. But I'd already pre-sold the car to Tom Boardman's dad in order to fund the last 2 rounds. So it was all proper messy, but needs must. But it was that got me the Honda Drive the year after, because Steve walked all the way up the paddock at Brands Hatch from the front garage to the back garage, Steve Neal, and said, fair play for pulling this together. It shows you really want it. And it was that got me the Honda Drive the year after, back again when Honda came into Dynamics.
Right.
So again, another one of these weird moments.
A bit of like front foot stuff, as you when you joined Dynamics in the first place, and also back in as well. If you'd seen to be on the front foot, people give you a shot. Absolutely right.
Exactly.
And I did say that you got second in the Cartridge World Car up at Knockhill. So
qualified in the front row again. I think Jason was on pole with the Cruise, the Chevy Cruise, or Lassetti maybe it was that year. But anyway, the full RML, World Touring car, and there's us literally with like nothing, like no team kit, no nothing, running a car with about 3 people. It was hilarious. It was funny.
Taking them on and and taking it to them. I've just seen Andrew Rankin and Diffan when Evans in Diffan. He said that Chilton went to Team Aon in 2009 in a Ford Focus. There you go.
Oh.
The fans know. Fans know. Yeah, blue and white. Remember that one. Well, questions come in at the right time. Diffan, again, how much of a difference was there between the Seat and the Honda to drive?
The Cupra, the Seat was really good. It was well developed. I mean, it's full factory car. Well, they were built as factory cars, as Super 2000 cars. So they were just slightly different. It did everything pretty well. It wasn't the quickest thing in a straight line. It wasn't the best over the, in the brakes. It was just pretty good everywhere. And that was, it was well developed. You could tell that it was a really, really well developed car. It just worked pretty good out of the box, and you didn't really need to change much. So it was a nice thing. Yeah,
good stuff. Thank you for the question, Diffan. Appreciate that. Speed up a little bit. 2010 round the houses, back to Dynamics, back again. Excuse me. With Matt again, I believe it was. Getting the band back together, as I've got on my notes. Was it kind of almost like you hadn't been away?
It was, It was the right time to go back. There was, Honda were coming. Honda came in full force. We had a good plan. Matt coming back from Vauxhall. I'd kind of come back a little bit from the abyss, and it was just very much like getting the band back together. But it was all of a sudden there was a bit of enthusiasm. We were on the front foot, and the car was fast in 2010. It was even faster in 11, when it had the turbo engine in it. Obviously, Matt won the championship back-to-back in 11, and then scoot through on to 2012, first year of NGTC, and, everything started going well for me from then on, really. Yeah,
which I'm going to come to in about 2.5 minutes, because obviously we want to talk about the good stuff. Just quickly, 2010, there's plenty of podiums and win at Snetterton and first and second at Knockhill, again, great stuff. Win at Donington, kept in the hunt, all that. JP retired, and right in the title hunt. This is the last bit of bad stuff. It just didn't quite happen at the Brands finale that year. Was it going into race? Was it race 2? Was it the drive shaft went or something, or something like that?
I can't remember. Yeah,
something happened with bad stuff. But it must be so frustrating after such a strong year in the title hunt, and then something out with your control. It must be galling.
It is, and it is a proper pain, But that's the cards you're dealt, and it's as much as you're not happy at the time. It just there's so many bits on the car that if something goes wrong, it goes wrong, and championships they're not won on the last race of the championship. They're won over the course of all 30 races. So you've got to somehow try and get that in your head that it could have been better on another day, and again, normally the answer is yes, somewhere along the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone points the finger at the end thing, but it's always trying to get to a point where that kind of thing doesn't matter. But it's far easier said than done, as we know.
Exactly.
Just a quick one. 2011, your best season yet. So was it 6 wins? And I mean, like you and Matt were, at it all season, which was fantastic. And again, on my notes, I said I could talk about wins, but 2 things stick out. Where are we? Let's go Alton Park. Yeah, okay, let's address Alton Park. We all know what happened at Lodge with Matt. I mean, you were leading. It was a bit wet, a bit slippy. I think, honestly, the amount of people that have messaged me about this. I spoke to Matt about it, and he was like, yeah, hand hold up. What was it like from your side? Because obviously you're leading, Matt's behind, late in the race, well, last corner. What did you think when he was there?
Yeah. It was what I can't remember the ins and outs of the race, but I think there'd been a safety car. I mean, we were just fast at that time. We were just fast. There was no, the car was in a good place. We're running 1-2. It's like, and the deal always was, you do not get together. You don't touch. But obviously, we're there to race, and we were allowed to race. That's the thing. There was never any like you're not allowed to race. It was just like if you're going to do it, you got to do it. And I think Matt had been messing about in the safety car, like there, and he tried it. This is, it wasn't like it came from nowhere. He thought that there was a lot of grip on the inside,
right?
But obviously the track, while he was messing about, I think on the inside, trying to see if there was a lot of grip. I think he'd kind of, I don't know, forgot the fact that there was becoming more grip on the outside as well. So when I braked a bit later, he tried to brake a little bit later than that. Last corner, last lap, and off he comes careering into the side of me and takes us both off. And that was a bad day because, obviously, we've taken each other off from a 1-2 fit, or he's arrived in at the side of me and taken us both off. I think I scrambled round and finished 5th or something, but we've just gone, we've had a 1-2 for the team that's just gone, 1-2 for Honda. We had the marketing director from Honda there, the chief exec, the finance director. It was like, this is just like what, and we had them all in hospitality. So there's like 150 people in hospitality, and this has all happened. And I remember afterwards, Steve got me out of the car, because obviously everyone's in a bit kind of disbelief, but he closed up shop and he got everybody like into the awning, like closed the awning down with all the mechanics, and basically kind of just gave this like amazing speech of, that's happened, that's shit, but it's happened, and we move on, and we're a team, and I don't want anyone like mumping their gums or that is motorsport, and we get on with it. That's what we do. And everyone was like, oh right, okay, well, we'll get on. And Matt was absolutely distraught. I mean, it's the last thing he wanted. It's not like he did it on purpose. He was absolutely, like beside himself. And in the truck, he was just like, he didn't know which way to look.
And you can see on the footage, he's just there. He's got. It was almost like, what have I done? You can see it. I mean,
Yeah. And it was probably one of those moments that it changed probably. Did it change our relationship? I don't know if it actually changed our relationship, but it certainly changed the way the team was, because for the first time, the team were looking at me for my attitude. Because if I had jumped up and down and gone ballistic and got, it would have just put a wall down the middle of the team, and we wouldn't have had the success that we continue to have after that. So I think it took us all I think we all probably learned, even, me being on the receiving end, I definitely learned a lot that day about attitudes and how the team look at you and what you can do to try and make it better. And ultimately, you got 2 really competitive drivers trying to win races, trying to win championships in cars that are capable of winning the championship. You don't like it, but you're going to get together. You mentioned Lando at the weekend, and it's going to happen. It's happened with in Formula One with Lewis and Nico. It's happened with all the way across the board.
Back to Prost and Senna and all that. Yeah,
exactly. So, but we put that behind us, and and off we went on our merry journey again.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to one more thing from that year. I think you've spoken about it before. Snetterton, the bodywork, was it deliberate?
Yeah, that was. So that was. I'd obviously dislodged the wing, but the problem was I couldn't see it from inside the car because I sit so low and so far back in the car. So we're having a conversation. So the technical flag comes out, and I'm going, "What's the problem? Like, because I can't see. And they're like, oh, you've lost the front wing. Like the front wing's flapping. You're going to need to pit. And I was like, okay, I said, I've got 3 laps, yeah? And they said, yeah, you got 3 laps to pit. I said, well, we need to, what we're going to do. So I said, there was a couple of Vauxhalls behind. I think Dan Lloyd maybe actually. I said, you need to send the team manager down to Vauxhall and do a deal with them to allow me to hit the Vauxhall to get rid of the wing. So tell the 2 Vauxhalls behind that I'll give up the 2 places, but they need to play the game and I need to be able to hit them up the back straight to try and get rid of the wing. But I'll give them up the places and I won't, if it comes off, I won't try and attack. So they went down and they had a chat about it and they said, look, kind of get where you're coming from, but we're a bit worried that we pick up a puncture or you give us damage, so we're not really up for playing that game. So obviously that's a lap gone. And I'm on the on the radio to Eddie, my engineer, and going, well, what now? He said, well, we're going to have to pit. I said, well, we need to hit something. Like we need to get it off, And he's going, well, you got to find something to hit. And I'm saying, by this time I'm getting a bit stressed. I'm like, oh, what the do you want me to hit? And he's like, the same fucking thing that you hit to dislodge it in the first place, which was a bunch of Recticel, which somebody else had hit and was now miles off the track.
It was about 10 feet off, wasn't it?
I'm like, I said, I don't even know how I can get there. So I sussed it out on the next lap and then just ran wide and then obviously hit it, knowing that it wasn't a tyre stack. And I couldn't have done it again. It flipped the wing off. It didn't bend the steering. We got back on and yeah, we made it to the end. But it was spoken about and we talked about it. Could I have done it again? I've got no idea. Did it? But it saved me so many points. It could have been a championship deciding thing.
Yeah.
Late on in the year. So yeah, it was. We talk about it, and yeah, it did work out. One of those cool things. On another day, you'd have broken the suspension, and that would have been it. But at that point, it was worth it because if it had broken the suspension, I wasn't scoring anyway because I was about to have to pit with the technical flag, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy because obviously it was one of my favourite moments. I was like, when it happened, I was like, I could have wished I could have rewound it. I was like, did he do that on purpose? So yeah. Fantastic. And it was so clean, as you say. I mean, it was nailed it. No, great stuff.
That was good.
No, good stuff. Okay. Quick one. 2012. Obviously, regroup, go again. It was you obviously. We're thinking, I can win a championship here. I can win a title with the experience you've now got on the car and the team, and everything was kind of aligned. Tricky start with a retirement, disqualification at Brands, things like that. But Donington, second, first in a roundabout way after all the shenanigans that went on in the last round. I mean, that must have been a relief, I guess, after a tricky start, bounce straight back, and off you go.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, by this time I'm kind of getting used to bad starts or bad starts in championships. And then it all kind of coming together a little bit later on in the year, which it seems to be a little bit of a story of, my seasons. So yeah, it was, I knew the package we had was going to be good. So it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah, that's cool. And there was one actually obviously you were running up the front, scoring points, wins, whatever. One I remember was at Silverstone. I think you qualified quite far back, 19th or something, and you shot straight through the pack. I think it's one of your most underrated drives, certainly up to 7th, which are kind of like mid-season or kind of late season, I guess. That must have felt pretty big from what it could have been to what it was.
Yeah, definitely, because we didn't really expect a lot from Silverstone because the car, the Honda at the time, it was amazing in the corners, brilliant on the brakes. Just it just wasn't that quick up the straight for whatever reason, whether it's aerodynamics or whether it was the way the engine regs were at the time. But they did everything to kind of haul us back a little bit. And Silverstone was going to be a bit of a bloodbath. And all of a sudden, I had a good run. We made the soft tire work really well, and we're passing people and taking advantage of things. And yeah, it was an unexpected good result, which really kind of changed the mindset going into the last round. So made life a little bit easier.
Yeah, just kept things ticking over, I suppose. Obviously, Brands finale, wet, obviously, because it's the Brands finale. It feels like it's wet. I mean, I guess you kind of knew where you were in the championship? Was it just a case of bagging points and seeing what you could do? And was it second? You took second in the second race of the weekend. So going into the finale, it was like, well, you kind of knew where Matt and JP were. Was it just a case of trying to manage it in the chaos and the wetness of a Brands finale?
Pretty much, and that was it. If there was anything more stressful than trying to win your first championship, it's in the rain at Brands GP, and there's so much expectation. We're in a really good place, but one small mistake, somebody else locking up and hitting you, the whole thing could have turned nasty pretty quickly. So it would have been so much better had it been dry. But also, I woke up on the Sunday morning and it was streaming wet. But in one way, I thought, God, this is going to make it really difficult. But in another way, I was like, actually, it's okay, because the Honda, we were so much better than the MG in the wet. That was the long and short of it. Jason, Plato didn't have a grip of that car in the rain. We were really, we were on it. So it was like, we know that we're going to have something kind of pretty competitive. We just need to bide our time, as the day goes on. So the first race, I was probably a bit tight and a bit edgy, and I didn't make a very good job of it. Matt was a lot better. He, won comfortably, and it was a bit kind of soul searching after race one. But I think then realised kind of how the points were and managed to be a bit better.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then job was done.
It feels like a silly question, and I've spoken to a few of you chaps who have won the championship. I spoke to Jason, I've spoken to Matt, and Tim and everything, because obviously Tim's one got overshadowed in '92 with all the shenanigans behind him. But what does it feel like when you cross the line and it's done? You've been through all that, all the potential crap that could happen on a final round. You cross the line, you're British Touring Car Champion. This is what you've been working for. It's a silly question, but what is it like? It must feel incredible.
It is. It's not, and it's just that relief, and it's just the look on everyone's face, and it's just you can see how much it means to everybody else as well as me, because everyone's worked so hard. And I brought the thing back in some funny states through different points of the year, and it just kind of makes everything kind of like make sense for people. But it was just incredible. Everything at that time was just kind of like turning to gold. It was like, when you're on the crest of the wave, it's so much easier to just kind of like keep plodding along than when you're just still grappling, trying to find the last little bit. But the team is in a good place. We were all really stable. Matt and I had been together for a long time. Engineers had been together for a long time. So it was all pretty cool,
Yeah, fantastic. And one question I do like to ask: when you win it the first time, what's the Monday morning like? Because I'm sure there may have been a wee dram or two might have been sunk. I always love asking this, because some people just say the Monday morning is just a write-off, and there's been a couple that have said no, it was all right.
Right. Oh no, we all got well stuck into it, I think. But because you get all the adrenaline as well, you end up not eating. You've got like so many kind of things to do, like PR wise, like straight after. We'd gone to the hotel, and we were still like up at like 5 a.m. when the sun's coming up, and we're trying to go back. You're trying to get to bed. But the worst thing is, I had to do an interview with Louise Goodman at like 9 a.m.
Yeah. And
it was like, and they made. I think I had to. I can't remember where it was. It was somewhere in the hotel. But God, I felt absolutely awful, and I was like, this is just like horrific. One of those moments where you think, I'm never drinking again. It was that bad.
Wow.
Until the next time. But it was good fun. But it was just this massive release, and everyone was just like absolutely loving it. So it was good,
Yeah,
it was good.
Fantastic. Yeah. I saw the one with Jake last time out, and he didn't look well rested, should we say?
Yeah.
Obviously, 2013, another consistent season, defending champion. Obviously, there's a target on your back now as the champion. Did it affect the way you approach things, or was it just more outside people sort of saying champion?
It was different, because all the 50-50 kind of moves that you made all of a sudden didn't work, because everybody wants to beat the champion.
Yeah.
And you kind of see that consistently over the years. You know, the things that have worked all of a sudden become a little bit more difficult. So that was a little bit for me in 13. But, you know, we rifled through. I had lots of things that, you know, were kind of like a few little stumbles along the way. But I think I'm enjoying, you know, Andy did a cracking job in 13. But I think we were only like 7 points behind in the end. And we were bloody close to going back to back in 2013, you know.
Because you won the final race of the year, which kind of might have been enough, but AJ.
Yeah, he had a problem. He broke a rear suspension or something.
Yeah, but he ended up ninth or something. But yeah, it was just one of those things. They were on it that year. I want to talk about 2014 though. The Civic, the Tourer. I remember when it came out. It was a bit like the Levorg, a bit further down the line. People looked at it and went, really? Because nothing like that had been around the track, really. I mean, since the Volvo, really, in 94. Yeah. That must have been a bit of a shift back the other way, from the Integra to the Civic, and then the Civic back to the Tourer. Hatch back to the Tourer. It must have been interesting.
It was, because it wasn't a nice thing to drive at the start, and it only existed because we had nothing else to race until the Type R came out in 2015. Yes. So Honda were almost going to pull the plug on the whole program because they're like, we don't have anything to race, so there's no point in us being involved. And Matt said, well, what have you got in the product line? So he's having a conversation with them. He's literally on the Honda website going through to try and find something to race. And the Tourer was there. He said, well, we'll race that. Is that on the same base plate as a Civic? They're like, yeah. And then they got really excited. And then Matt was like backtracking, going, oh my God. And then he phoned me like after the Honda meeting. He said, do you want the good news or the bad news? I was like, all right, give me the good news. He said, well, Honda are still in, so we're going racing next year. I said, that's brilliant. I said, what's the bad news? He said, we're racing in a state car. I said, oh, great. Like, why? Why did you agree to this? He said, because that was the option. There was no other option.
It was that or no racing.
It was that or nothing. So we raced the Tourer, and it ended up being better as the year went on. You still win a race, and it's still the first estate car to win a race, because everyone has glowy memories of the Volvo, but it was actually shocking and didn't.
It wasn't good. It was the following year, wasn't it? The Volvo was good.
Yeah, when it was it was quite cool to. It's just another. We knew it actually worked out perfect for Honda, because if the thing was good. And it was quite good. It was brilliant PR, because an estate car is winning in the British Touring Car Championship. And if it wasn't good, it didn't really matter, because, hey, it's an estate car and it shouldn't win anyway. And by the way, did you know we've got Type R coming next year? So it was the perfect PR kind of balance.
Yeah. I mean, I guess with terms of results, it was kind of like a low bar, wasn't it? Nobody expected anything. So
Exactly.
And you've got in the top three again. I mean, at this point, you got one championship, but I think it was your fifth top three finish in a row. You must have thought. I mean, are you one of those people that thinks, "Oh, it's good that we're there," or are you one that thinks, "For Christ's sake, I want another one"?
Yeah, definitely. It was just anything we can do to win again, And there was just no stone unturned at Dynamics. It was just really, it was constant development. Like I said, good people. Really focused. Good budget, and it was just let's just keep on going, and good understanding of the technical regulations, which made life a little bit easier.
Yeah, cool. Obviously 15 and 16 back to the hatch. That must have been a relief when the Type R came in. You must have thought, my God.
Yeah, it was, and we knew it was coming, and it was a great car, and that hit the ground running. It was everything we'd been missing before that all of a sudden became a bit better. Yeah. The performance was good, the aero was good, and it was just that was when they really started turning the car down quite a lot performance wise, like engine wise, to kind of keep the championship competitive. Because that car was good. That car was really good.
Yeah, it was good. I'm just going to comment from Kaz Phipps, just to go back to the Tourer. She said, hello Kaz, by the way. Said, I remember Thruxton had problems getting the estate car into the garage. Yeah, they're pretty tight, aren't they, Thruxton?
Couldn't fit it actually in from front to rear either. It was massive.
Amazing.
Massive. So, Rich, I'm getting a little bit tight on time here because I need to go and tidy up with this event finishing. So, do you want to maybe do some questions or fast forward through a little bit?
Just zap through the two finales in 15 and 16, because they were absolutely brilliant. Quick touch on Europe, and then we'll crack on. Basically, 2 solid seasons, points, wins, great stuff. End of 15, that drive back passing Adam Morgan into fifth. You basically had to finish fifth in the end to win the championship. That drive must have been pretty exciting because it was bloody good to watch.
Yeah, and that was just one of these things. So obviously it had all gone pear-shaped after race 2. We'd picked up some damage early on and it had locked right rear brake caliper on or damaged the rear brake line. So we were just really, really slow in race 2 and we just went backwards and backwards. And, it got to this point from race 3 where obviously I'm starting on the back row of the grid. Jason is starting on the front row of the grid. And, he's my main championship challenger, and by all intents and purposes my championship's gone. There's no way I'm winning from the back row of the grid. So it was quite a stressful couple of hours, but then we all spoke about it, and we spoke and we're like, look, Gordon, remember that you're now getting rid of all the weight, so we're taking 75 kilos out of the car, which was because that was maximum success ballast at the time, for me. So the thing is going to be on its tiptoes. Neil Brown, the engine builder, was like, we're just going to turn this thing up. Like, we're going to give it qualifying mode, because if it blows up, it doesn't matter. You weren't winning the championship anyway. And if it survives, we've given you absolutely everything. And that was basically what we did. We turned, it was just, the thing was absolutely on it. We had everything into it. It was as fast as it could go. And my kind of attitude was, if there's half a gap, I'm going for it. And if I end up falling off or getting taken off, you know what, I've gone off trying, because I'm not winning. I'm not here to finish second. I'm here to win. And we kind of got on a bit of a roll, and the thing was blinding. It was just everything I wanted. I could place it where I wanted, and made some good moves. Some people realized I was coming through come hell or high water, and some didn't make it super difficult. Some did, but it was just going and going and going. And those are the races that you love. They come every once in a while, and you think, it's just those days you would drive around till it runs out of fuel. But obviously that was a day almost the brake discs almost exploded, because it was like, because we couldn't run the line lock for the start because the problems from race 2. There was a whole load of things that we were managing inside the car as well. But yeah, one of those things where luck was on my side, and almost finished on the podium, which God knows, it was like, just keep going, and it was mega. It was mega day.
Yeah, it's brilliant. I mean, it was a brilliant one, and it was a great one to watch, as was 2016. Obviously, you got yourself into the position again. Similar kind of a thing, you were behind Sam. Sam toured off, starting behind him on the grid, on the back foot, behind on points, behind on track position. But you just went. It was just one of those, everything just seemed to align, and you just went through past him nice and clean. And yeah, must have been another.
Yeah, that was good, because we'd worked. I mean, at half distance in 2016, I was 9th in the championship. I think I was.
Croft, isn't it? It was.
I think we were over 50 points off the lead of the championship, maybe more. And we clawed back, and it actually became quite simple at Brands, because I just had to beat Sam every race to have a chance of winning the championship. And it was very, very simple. When you're sat in the grid, I have to finish in front of the car that sat in front of me. That was it. That was all that mattered. So then you can just gear the whole thing about the strengths of your car. And maybe from Sam's point of view, maybe he was getting a little bit tight, driving, because he could see that lead kind of evaporate. We talk about momentum and being on the crest of the wave, and I was just building, and and he was just seeing that kind of lead kind of shrink. And, great racer. He had an amazing season in that BMW. He trounced us all at Rockingham. He trounced us all at numerous other places. But just towards the tail end of the season, our car, we got in a groove, and were able to, sneak it across the line for a back-to-back. So it was cool.
Yeah, back-to-back, 3-time champion. I mean, that must have been, wow. That must have been very cool. Very cool.
It was mega. It was proper, and to do it back to back, Giovanardi had done it 2007, 2008. He was the last one to have done it back to back. So it's, Matt had done it in 10, 11. So it was super special to kind of emulate, what Matt had done back to back. So yeah, it was just one of those amazing runs,
Yeah, some good company to be in. Just very quickly, you're a World Touring car. I'm a big fan of World Touring cars. Always loved it. with Audi and like WRT. Just a good opportunity to do something different, I guess.
It was, and I think I was, the 2017, it had been a bit up and down. I think I led the championship at half distance.
Yeah.
Then just, I don't know, just felt like the momentum stalled a little bit, the kind of latter half of the year. And then the opportunity came to go and do, WTCR World Touring Car with Audi. And it was one of those things a little bit perhaps like Matt's option at Vauxhall way back in 2008. It was an opportunity to change my life a little bit in terms of the financials. And it was an opportunity to go and see the world and to do something a little bit different. And yeah, that was, in hindsight, I would do it again. I'd probably do it with a different manufacturer.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that was the opportunity that I had. And, like I said, you make your decisions and you got to stand by them. So, everything's fine in hindsight. But it was a great opportunity. Yeah, quite a cool thing to do. And, like I said, got to race in some great places. Got to race in Suzuka in Japan.
Yeah.
Got to race around in Nordschleife at Nürburgring to Malaysia, Sepang, all over the place. So from that point of view, pretty cool.
Yeah, and cool to get the win, obviously, around the streets of Wuhan. I thought that was a cool circuit. Pretty, nice little thing to have on the CV as well, that kind of win out there, different part of the world, different series.
It was, and it was the only circuit where nobody had been before. None of the teams had been before.
Yeah.
None of the drivers had been, there was no simulator for it because, it didn't exist. So literally that was a little bit like the antipode of like just everybody going on, like, on a level. And, we got it right that weekend and had a great weekend. And, through all the trials and tribulations, can still say that, as a race winner at world level, which is cool.
And there's a cool photo of you with the trophy, which I like. I do like that photo. Just quickly, obviously, came back to the BTCC with Dynamics, back home again, won some races, things like that. Just quickly want to jump onto this season though, with Speedworks and Toyota Gazoo and all that. I did see somewhere that it came together quite late. I think you were talking to Louise Goodman actually. First round, it came together quite quickly. Later at the end of the season, just very quickly because I know you pushed.
Yeah.
How did it all come together, and when is your luck going to change this year?
I know. Yeah, it did all come together really late. I remember I was actually sat next to Jake Hill at the Autosport Awards in end of January, and at that point I'd had no conversations with, with Speedworks or Toyota. So there was enthusiasm from Toyota initially to see if I'd be interested in what that could look like. And obviously, I've got had dealings with Christian from when Rory was there. I knew Danny Buxton from back in the Fiesta days. So there was a lot of people there that I knew. And when we started talking, it was just quite clear that their enthusiasm and motivation is as high as ever. Now I know the results haven't been what any of us would have wanted so far, but that doesn't mean there's not a lot happening behind the scenes. It's been pretty quick fire coming into these events. It takes a lot to take the hybrid out the car. It's changed the car massively. Some of it for the better, some of it takes a bit more. And we're just a little bit shy in a couple of areas, which we can't change in these kind of first few rounds. But we've got 6 rounds to make 6 weeks to try and make some changes in the summer, and I'm, hopeful, confident, and pushing them really, really hard to make those changes that will hopefully see us take that step when we come back after the summer break.
Yeah, great stuff. Great to hear that. And obviously, we all hope it. We all hope it picks up. And I've got a lot of time for Danny Buxton as well. He's a really good guy. What time to say hi. And hopefully, you won't get turned around like you did at Thruxton or speared into like you did at Snetterton. I mean, you weren't happy.
I know. I wasn't, and that is a little bit. I got taken off at Donington. Where do we go after that? Snetterton, taken off there. No, Brands Hatch. What happened there? That just. Wasn't amazing. Taken off at Snetterton, taken off at Thruxton. Like it looks bad on paper, the results, but a lot of it could have been different had the rub of the green just gone a slightly different way. And especially Thruxton, had we survived the onslaught of race 1 at Thruxton, we would have been in a much better place as the day went on. But yeah, kind of difficult to come back through too much when you start from the back.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just obviously on behalf of me and everyone watching, we just wish you all the best for Alton Park this weekend. You're due a change of fortune, and hopefully go into the summer a bit more positive. Fingers crossed for that. So I'll pick a couple very, very quickly, so I know you got to go. Very quickly, some questions that have come in. Andrew Rankin, what's your favourite racing moment, if you have any, and why?
I mean, the championships are super cool. I think some of the historic stuff is really good. I really enjoy that. Winning round Goodwood is really cool. And it's just a little bit about the variety. We've got there's a Lotus Cortina that there was at Dynamics that Matt and I both raced together, and that was quite cool. So many memories, and hopefully many more still to make. But I'm the luckiest kid alive. I do some, I've got the best job in the world working at Knockhill. I drive race cars for a living. I'm just lucky. I'm just the luckiest kid alive. So every time I get to hit the start button and go and drive cars puts a smile on my face, and I'm very thankful for it.
Fantastic. Love to hear that. Quick one. Dale Greenlease, he says, how about a Knockhill BTCC race in reverse? I guess that's the other way around, not literally in reverse. Would that be doable?
It would be doable. I mean, we're licensed to run. We're the only circuit in Europe licensed to run in both directions, which is cool. I mean, actually, random kind of twist. Brands Hatch used to run the other way. Brands Hatch initially used to run anti-clockwise
on the grass. Yeah, I used to go up Paddock Hill Bend and round.
Up Paddock Hill.
Yeah.
Misano changed in Italy. It went one way to the other, but they've all gone permanent. So, could it happen? Yes. Will it happen? Probably no. The reason being, from Alan's point of view in Toka, is that the track in its normal configuration, if you class it that, provides some of the best action that touring cars ever gets. So why would he change a winning formula? And to be honest, he's quite right.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just a quick comment here from John Chambers. Says Flash always speaks so well. I think absolutely agree with that. That's a very nice little media thing. Very good to see. Different elements. How do you deal with such heat in the car like we're going to have this weekend at Alton Park? I mean, we saw it at Snetterton last year or the year before. Proper hot. I mean, it must get pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's not good. It's actually getting, it's just not good at all. And to put it in perspective, if you see, if it's 30 degrees outside, which is going to be at the weekend, it will be plus 60 degrees C inside the car. I mean, it's crazy. And then think about the fact you've got fireproof underwear, race suit, gloves, balaclava. The windows are sealed. There's no air coming in. It's really, really difficult. But it's like the only way I can describe it to people is that, if you go to your local gym or whatever, and you go to the sauna when you're on holiday or whatever, or you're in the gym, sit in the sauna and just do some basic calculations. 7 7s 49, 5 5s 35. Just do some calculations, but sit in there for half an hour, and then do some other different calculations. And if you have to think about it, you've just crashed, because that's essentially what's happened.
Wow, I'm absolutely trying that.
It's the only way I can describe the intensity of the heat. So you train not only for your body, but you got to train for your mind to work. And your brain to compute at those temperatures as well. So yeah, there's a bit more to it than meets the eye. No aircon, unfortunately.
No, that's incredible. I'm so trying that next time I get in a sauna.
Exactly.
Okay, I did see one last question. Oh God, my voice isn't working. There we are. Oh, great. Would you sign a cap for Rich and his collection? Oh. I'll speak to Danny Buckton about that. Okay, what we got here? Did Rory give you any tips on how to set up the Toyota?
No, because it's changed so much since he had it. He had the Toka engine. There's not a Toka engine in it. It's the Toyota engine that's in it now. He had hybrid. There's no hybrid now. So yeah, fundamentally different. Tires changed as well. So obviously Rory was in the Toyota. I was elsewhere. So we did. Not been a cross of information, shall we say, from one team to the next, which is the right thing to do.
Yeah, sure. Fair enough. Okay, two more. What's on your bucket list? That was a good question from earlier. Apologies to whoever asked it. I can't remember. But have you got a bucket list thing? One thing you'd love to do?
Bucket list. I don't know. I mean, having just watched Le Mans 24 Hours, that'd be quite cool to do in modern car. I'm lucky I'm out there in 3 weeks' time to do Le Mans Classic and a couple of old cars. But I think that it would be pretty cool to do. I'd like that.
Yeah, that'd be a cool thing to do. Now, I did see Katie Eames. She tunes in every single week. She's brilliant, and she always asks, "What's your favourite ice cream and favourite biscuit?"
Don't really do. I'm pretty plain on the ice cream front, just vanilla ice cream. I'm not that fussed. But obviously, a Tunnock's tea cake is the only biscuit of note.
I was going to say I'd be staggered if it was anything else. Fantastic. Okay, this is the last question. One of mine. You shared the track with some great races. I mean, I've got guys. Gunnar John Carvena, he was your teammate. Freddie Vervish, Bernani, Norbert Michelitz, Thiago Montero, Jan Erlische, and all the guys from the touring cars. Giovanardi and Chilton Hill and Darren Turner, Huff, Jordan, Richard Westbrook. You shared the track with in GT, and Morbidelli, Ingram, Sutton, Prio, Tarquini, Muller, some bloke called Turkington, and Neil, and all that. Are there any that stick out in your mind as being not better, but just stuck out in your mind for whatever reason as just being good?
There's just so many of them. I mean, they're all at that top level. They're just, they are just mega, and that's across the board. And that's, all the touring car boys are all at an incredible level. But then it's even, like race round Goodwood, and you've got Steve Soper, who's in his 70s, still driving like his life depends on it, and still as good as ever. And you get to share the track, with Dario Franchitti or Jimmy Johnson or Scott Dixon. So it's almost the historic stuff where most people are kind of going to, because you can just actually drive for the pure enjoyment of it. So because people are specialists in their own field at that given time. But the Goodwood stuff is pretty cool. Yeah,
some great names there. Absolutely brilliant. I mean, I would love to go on for long, but you're a busy man. You've got stuff to do. Yeah. So we've run on a bit longer than planned. But as I said firstly, everyone who's tuned in, thank you very much for comments and questions. And there's well over 200 of you, so thank you very much for the support. But of course, your biggest thanks go to you, Gordon. Best of luck this weekend for the rest of the season. We'll let you get on.
No, perfect. Thanks for having me, and thanks for joining, folks. And we'll see what happens for the rest of the season.
Yeah, fingers crossed. We'll be watching. Great stuff. Thanks very much, guys. Thanks again to you, Gordon, and we'll